Yeah.
When you help somebody see how important they are, not only to their own life, but to this society and this, planet and in the community, that's when you get a volunteer army. And
Yeah.
when you have a volunteer army all working towards the same thing, you're unstoppable.
Now, isn't that a compelling way to harness the power of collective action? My guest this week is Jessica Stevens. She knows all about the magic of instilling importance in others if you want to work toward a common goal. A corporate marketer turned social marketer and podcast host, Jessica is a master networker and connector, helping to pair people with others and opportunities. We talked about all kinds of stuff like the importance of loving your life, showing up for yourself, being your own best friend, and believing that despite whatever life throws at you, you can figure it out. If you're looking for some inspiration today, you have come to the right place, and I am so glad you're here. Keep listening. Welcome to the Communication 24/7 podcast, where we communicate about how we communicate. I'm your host, Jennifer Furlong. All right, this morning we have a very special treat. This guest, I've been a guest on her show, and this is why I'm so excited to have her on my show, because I got to tell you, the way she is able to communicate with you and help you feel confident and comfortable in being vulnerable and sharing your stories, it's like a masterclass in having a really good conversation. So I have Jessica Stevens here with us, and she is a marketer. She's a podcaster. She's a facilitator and a speaker. She talks about all kinds of great stuff. And I got to tell you, her podcast is called I Just Blank Now What, which I think is brilliant, because who out of all of us have never had that experience where just something exploded, something went wrong, something just happened where it was like, oh shit, like literally, now what? Mm-hmm. So Jessica, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I am super excited to have this conversation, and I'm excited that our listeners get to listen to our conversation and the things that we're going to talk about today.
Good morning, Jen. Oh my goodness. I am so excited to be here with you. It is always so fun to be a guest on someone else's show and just kind of like show up and like do the thing and not have to be the host, because we know how much work goes into hosting a show. So it's always kind of nice just to like roll up to the microphone and like pour my heart out and feed into someone else's community. I love that.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that you will feel just as comfortable pouring your heart out as I felt pouring my heart out on your show.
I adore you. I adore you. And we've had so many really great conversations already when we hit record and when we haven't been hitting record. So I know today is just going to be another one of those great chats with a girlfriend.
Absolutely. So let's get the audience caught up, because you and I, we're kind of, we've done this a time or two. So let's get the audience caught up on who you are. What has your journey been like? Take us back to the beginning. How did what was before you became a speaker and a facilitator and you started your podcast? Take us back to the beginning and tell us a little bit about your journey.
Absolutely. So, hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Stevens. Thank you so much for having me and filling your ears today with some knowledge. I always know that it's such a privilege to be on somebody's playlist. And so I'm super grateful. So a little bit about me. So my background is in marketing and advertising. I had a 15-year career in that industry. But prior to getting into the ad industry, which was not my intention, by the way, I was a university student. My university career started out in the sciences. I was an environmental science major. I wanted to be a marine biologist and save the fish. And I was a scuba diver and loved all things like environment. Like I was that kid who was like, recycling Nazi, like, oh my God, you got to put it in the blue box. And they were like, so I loved the planet. And so I ended up going into environmental science in university, which was a great program. But in the second year of university, all environmental students had to go out into the environment, right? Like you had to do a field placement. Yeah. And I'm a tropical girl. I'm a scuba diver. I love the ocean. I'm a fish kind of girl, like warm weather. Yeah. And when I got my package in the summer between first and second year of where my field placement was going to be, I was like, oh no. So I had picked all the warm places, like send me to the ocean. They wanted to send me to the Yukon to study snow.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh, that's not happening. That is not happening.
I agree with you.
This girl is not going to the Yukon. I am not studying snow. So I dropped out of environmental science.
Wow. It was that big of a deal.
It was like, that big of a deal. That is not me. And I moved over and became a communications major.
Okay.
Ta-da. And my plan was to be a communicational therapist. I wanted to help people communicate better. So I took all the courses in semiotics and nonverbal communication and all of that good stuff with the intention that I would go on and do like my master's and all the things, which I don't know why that became a thing for me, because I am not like I'm not a schoolgirl. Like I do not enjoy school. I did not like school. So why I was like envisioning this very long educational career is besides me. But my dad worked in advertising. Okay. He was a media planner and buyer, and then the president of a media agency. And so when I was in university, I got a summer internship job at his ad agency, at the sister agency to his media agency, as a summer intern. So that was my first step into the advertising world. Wow. And I went back for another summer and I moved into another department. So one summer I worked in finance. The next summer I worked in the PR department. The next summer I worked in the whatever. So I just kind of bounced around this ad agency for 4 summers. And then when I graduated, they offered me a job.
Nice. And, being a fresh graduate,
you needed the job. Right? And I'm like, oh, okay. So I accidentally ended up in advertising. And then I spent 15 years there.
Wow. So you must have enjoyed it though. I mean, 15 years, that's a pretty good chunk of time to develop a career, to have that career path going. So what did you enjoy about advertising? What were some of the things that really, just brightened your day about that, being in that industry?
So I was on the creative side. So as I said, my dad worked on the media agency side. I was on the creative agency side when I got my first job there. And I was the marketing and business development coordinator. That was my very first job and title. And so I was in the department that brought in new clients. That was our job. We were pitching new business. And that is the lifeblood of any advertising agency. Right. So that is where all the action is. That's where all the eyeballs are, right? All the senior executives are looking at this department like, what are you guys doing? Where, bringing in clients. And I got to work with all the senior directors of all the different departments who would come in to be the pitch team, right? Okay. So I'm in a boardroom with all the VPs and whatever, and me.
Yeah.
And I was a sponge. I was just soaking up all the knowledge, because this was a very highly coveted position. No first year, person in an ad agency is rubbing elbows with the CEO, the managing directors and all those guys like I was. I had direct access to some senior people. So that was really exciting for me, that I was in a position where I was learning more than my comrades who were in the cubicles next to me.
Yeah. Now I have a question about this, because you're right. Not very many people coming right out of school are going to have this opportunity to be able to meet with the top level executives, in any firm. What were some of the skills that you think you had either learned as a communication major or that you had learned to develop along the way in your studies that enabled you to be able to hold your own in that setting? Because I have to imagine that was very intimidating for a young person to be in the room with all of these top level executives who have already, I mean, they've gotten to the top of the ladder as far as you're concerned.
Uh-huh.
So, how did you hold your own in those spaces? What were some of those skills that you feel enabled you to be successful in that position?
Fantastic question. I am a first generation Canadian.
Hmm.
Right. I was raised by immigrant parents who came to Canada to further their education and create a better life
Hmm.
for their children, aka me. And so, as an immigrant, you know that there is a way in which you have to show up
Mm,
differently than your classmates or your peers. You have to be your best
mm,
always,
mhm,
especially as a woman,
mhm,
also as a girl,
mhm,
and a woman of color.
mhm.
So I'm like that trifecta person who how you show up is really, really important. And
Yes.
so I'm very grateful that as a child, my parents put me in dance classes. So I
Mhm,
was, a dancer from the ballet dancer from the age of 3 all the way through university. So
mhm.
I was comfortable on a stage.
Ah.
Okay. I
Mhm,
was piano lessons, like all the things where
mhm.
you're kind of thrown in these situations and you have to learn quickly.
Yeah.
So that definitely helped. I also have just been that kind of girl who's
Mhm.
like, here I am.
Yeah. You are. I will have to say you are incredibly open, and even though you and I have only had conversations through Zoom, right? We've
Mhm.
always had online conversations. Even through the camera, even through the screen, I get the feeling that you are just this open person, and it's your nonverbals, it's your body language, it's the smile that you bring,
Mhm.
it's the light in your eyes. I think a lot of people will underestimate just how when you walk into a room and the first few seconds when somebody looks at you, whether we like it or not, we are being judged, and there's
Absolutely.
a perception of how approachable you
Yeah.
are. And
Um,
you come across as really approachable, somebody who, hey, I feel confident I could come up to you and say hi, and it's not going to be weird. It's not going to be awkward. You're not going to make me feel like, okay, why are you talking to me?
yeah.
Mm.
I definitely give off that energy as much
Yeah.
as I possibly can because I know what it feels like on the other side of
Mhm.
not feeling welcomed.
Mm,
Right? Like
mm,
in high
yeah,
school or in other situations where there's cliques
yeah.
where you don't like I was able to assess really quickly, am I going to be welcomed in this group or am I not?
Mm, yeah,
Right? And
yeah.
so I always kind of make sure that if anyone else is scanning a room
Mhm.
and they don't feel like they belong there, well then I'm going to be that little light that says,
Yeah,
"Oh, this is a safe space over here. Come hang out here where
right.
you can join and you can sit at our table."
Yeah,
I think
and
I've
that
always
is a breath of fresh air for anyone who goes to any type of networking event,
yeah.
which, I mean, if you're like myself, I gotta tell you, y'all, I do not enjoy networking events. There's a lot
I
of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure, and I am someone who, on the outside, everyone is going to make the assumption that I'm an extrovert,
Mm, mm,
right? Like,
mhm,
and there is a part of me that is definitely extroverted. I do enjoy other people. I do feed off other people's energy, all that stuff.
mhm,
But I am also extremely shy
mm.
when I'm in an environment where I don't know anyone else.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I think that was what I used to do is instead of me having to go and infiltrate another group,
Mhm.
or another, circle of people that were already talking, I would just turn on my light
Yeah.
so that people would see me and come to me.
Yeah. And when you are a young person surrounded by all of these CEOs, top level executives, I could imagine you caught their eye, and they felt like as if they could communicate with you,
Yeah.
easily and just just this flow of conversation where it wasn't tortured. It wasn't forced.
I was somebody who I was dependable, right? They knew like if they told me that I needed to do something, Jessica was going to get it done. And if she didn't know how, she's going to figure out how to do it.
That's right.
Two, I asked a lot of questions.
Yes.
Right? You have to ask a lot of questions. And in those early years of your career, that is the time in which you are absolutely allowed to ask all the questions because everybody knows you're not supposed to know anything.
That's right.
But if you don't ask questions and you kind of like skate for a long time, and now it's like, 3 or 4 years in, and then you pop your hand up and like, I have a question, like blah, blah, blah. They're like, how have you gotten this far into your career and you don't know that? So I was really good at making sure that I asked a lot of the questions up front in the beginning, because that's when you have a hall pass. Yeah, like, I'm new. Like, play the new card as much as you can. Like, I'm new around here. I'm going to ask all the questions so I get all the information versus making an assumption that, I think I know what that means. But then 3 years down the road, you're like, you mean that's what that means? I always thought it meant this. And it's been, and they're like, no. Right. So for anyone who's showing up to a new space, you get a hall pass. You get to ask all the questions you want because everyone knows you know nothing.
That is such fantastic advice for anyone who is starting out in their career path. So you're the new kid on the block.
I'm the new kid on the block.
And you are soaking up the information. You're asking good questions. You're surrounded by leadership. Because I know you are going to observe, and I'm sure that you picked up on some of the communication cues, the skill sets that enabled these people in leadership to be able to get to where they were, at the executive level. So what were some of your observations? What did you pick up at that time as the new kid on the block? Could you share some revelations, some things that you realized, man, when you get to that level, I mean, there is a certain expectation or maybe a certain communication style that is more effective than others. What did you notice about that? Jumpstart your healthy living journey with 30 Days to Healthy Living. This best-selling nutrition set is designed to act as a reset to establishing healthy habits and a healthy lifestyle so you can get more energy, manage weight, and feel fit. Now, with more choices than ever, you can customize your 30 days with delicious protein shakes, detox teas, and supplements, all designed to support your goals. Ready to start feeling better and healthier? Get started today by clicking on the link in the show notes.
Your presence is really important. So your attention, right? Like, people can be in a room and you can be listening, but like, are you there? Are you making eye contact? Right. So being present, your appearance is a really big deal too. Right. Like, how are you walking in the room? Right. So what are you wearing? How are you styled? And again, I was a new grad coming out of school, but I was in a room of executives who all had really big fat paychecks and therefore really, glamorous outfits to go along with it in the advertising industry world, so I had to like show up. And when you're presenting and when you're pitching and you're going after new business, that's when, the A team rolls in. Like, they bring in the top people who present well, who are the most knowledgeable, who are the most personable, because they need to get along with those future clients.
That's right.
Clients want to hire people who they feel like they can openly have conversations with, they can trust. Like, when I'm telling you my business problems, it's we're in a cone of silence here, right? Like, it's not going to be, the gossip on the town. And three, like, is this someone who I'd actually want to go and have lunch with, or sit back and have a beer with, or have like a personal conversation with? Those are those are the people others want to actually have a professional relationship with, that could veer into that. I like this person. There could possibly be a, not super personal relationship, but friendly and camaraderie, like, because we will go above and beyond for somebody we like.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad that you mentioned that because a lot of times I'll have these conversations with different experts within the field, whether they come from a sales background, marketing background. And there does tend to be a lot of focus on, yeah, of course, your presence and your appearance
Mm-hmm.
and your level of knowledge and all of those things, but not many of them tapped into what you just tapped into. Are you likable? That goes a long way. Can they just have a good conversation with you? Do they trust? That was something that you just mentioned also. Can they trust that whatever they're sharing with you is not going to be spread all over town? And then they, open up Twitter and they see their business, is all over Twitter.
Yeah.
These are important things that I don't hear many people talk about. Why do you think that is? I mean, in the marketing space, we do focus on polish a lot, don't
Yeah.
we? But not necessarily the actual connection, the relationship
The connection,
piece.
the relationship. So here's the thing. So when you're in we'll use in an office environment. If you have a friend in the office who is your source of information,
Mhm.
that if you need to know something about what's going on, I'm sure everybody out there has that person in the office where they're like, let's go ask so and so. She
Yeah.
knows it all.
Yeah.
Or he knows it all.
Mhm.
We're not going to be biased here in terms of gender, but this person is has their finger on all the things that are going on in the office, and you're going there to find out information.
Yeah.
And they're free flowing it, they're
Mhm.
sending it to you. That's great because
Yeah.
they're your source.
Mhm.
But do you actually ever tell that person anything?
Mm. Mm. That's a
Nope.
really great question. Yeah.
Because that when
Mhm.
you're not in the room, guess whose
Mhm.
information is now being spilled to everybody else?
Yeah.
So people think by sharing a secret with somebody, they're building trust with somebody.
Mm.
But in truth and in fact, they're actually breaking trust.
Mm.
Because while that person appreciates getting that knowledge, they've tucked it in the back of their head and been like, oh, this person is not safe to communicate with and
Mm.
share secrets with because she just told me that person's secret. So
That's
who's not to say she's not going or they're not going to share my secret?
Yeah. So you really need to make sure that you are coming across as someone who is trustworthy.
Trustworthy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're not that person doing all the gossiping at the water cooler.
Yeah. Can you hold space for people?
Yeah. Mm.
And can you create an environment in which they feel safe
Mhm.
to share information?
Yeah. When you think about it, when you think about leaders in any organization and they get to that executive level, they do have a certain way about them, don't they? When it comes to um, not being the person who just kind of spouts off at the mouth. They don't just randomly spill
Yeah.
information. I mean, they are very careful in the type of information that they do divulge and, they're
That is
very careful.
that is
Time.
definitely the challenge in leadership
Mhm.
because there's this fine line in leadership of being transparent
Yeah.
and sharing knowledge and disseminating information down within an organization. But
Mm.
at the same time, they can't
Yeah.
because there's things that leaders are not in a position to share with
Mhm.
the general, you know, office and staff.
Mhm.
There needs to be checks and balances. You can't just be sharing all the things with everybody all the time. So
Right.
leaders have to have that very fine balance of being forthcoming and
Mhm.
transparent and sharing enough, but
Yeah.
not too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a skill that eventually, as people kind of, grow up in the ranks of an office and they kind of get clearance to the next level, kind of like in, Super Mario Brothers,
Yeah.
that's where they're accessible to more information, but they're also being told at the same time, with this information comes great responsibility.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
you have to be granted that. You have to be proven like this is somebody that this organization can trust with information. That's how people grow up
Mhm.
into new roles is are you good at the thing that you do?
Mhm.
But the kind of other big qualifier is, can this person be trusted?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's why it's so important, especially if you are a new manager. what you just said. You're really good at what you do. Congratulations, right? You're going to get a
That's
promotion.
point of entry. Like that's
Yeah.
like that's table stakes here.
Yeah.
But
And now
things that
there's a whole new skill
really
set.
with things that are really going to help other people get that next leadership position is not just what are you able to do, but like how are you doing it? How do
Yeah.
people perceive you? Are are you liked around the organization? How how do people feel about you? Because those are the things that are those underlying qualifications that are going to get somebody moved up to the next level or invited to join this, special task force or be invited to this project or get nominated to go and be the person who goes and talks to that reporter, blah, blah, blah. Like, how are you going to be showing up and representing this brand and this company?
Yeah. And if you're somebody who really wants to move up in the company that you're at, don't just think about within your own department. You want to be that person who's known as trustworthy, the go-to person to be able to get things done. But you got to also think about outside of the department. This is some strategic planning going on for your own career path. When you think about it from a communication standpoint, who are you building relationships with outside of your department? And how are you making sure that their perception of you, how are you being mindful, of those things, and what type of conversations are you having?
What's interesting is, now where I am in my career, like all these years later, and I look back, I'm like, oh, I was building my personal brand from day one.
Yeah.
Without even realizing it.
Yeah.
Because how I represent and how I am today and show up today and all the things was stitched together through all of those moments throughout my career. Way back is like, how are you showing up?
Yeah. So let's jump forward. You said you were in that industry for what, 19 years?
15 years.
15 years in advertising. So what was that shift? What was the catalyst that caused you to say, you know what, I'm ready for something new?
So I loved advertising. Advertising was a lot of fun. Got to do really cool things. Got to shoot TV commercials on top of mountains in Chile and work on big global brands and travel the world and all the glamorous things.
All the things.
Right? All the things about what, the average person doesn't see is what it takes to have that life. And, my girlfriends used to joke with me like, Jess, you have the ideal single girl in the city life, right? You got the condo, you have a nice car, you drive your closet full of designer clothes and shoes, and you go to all the parties and like
you are one of the girls in Sex and the City at this point.
Right. And I was like, but girlfriends, do you know what I had to do to have that life? That is work like a crazy person. And advertising is an industry that is known for breeding workaholics.
Yeah.
And I was becoming one.
Oh, wow.
Because you're always on, right? You're always working, 2 or 3 seasons ahead. Like as soon as you wrap that Christmas campaign, guess what you're thinking about? Christmas 2024, right? Like you don't even have a chance to like enjoy that because you're always,
already
12,
moving
9,
on to the next
6,
thing.
3-month planning ahead.
Wow.
So you're living in the future.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to be present. And I got to the point where I really wanted to be married to a human, but I realized that I was married to my career.
Yeah.
And I was approaching that age, but thankfully, I met the man who is now my now husband, and he and I started a long distance relationship. And I don't know if you or any of your listeners have ever been in a long distance relationship, but the thing that people don't realize about those is that they actually take more time than in-person ones do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a relationship that made me realize that I didn't own my time. Somebody else did. They told me where I had to be, when I had to be there, how long I had to show up for. I'm like, this is even less fun than it was before. Right?
Yeah, because you weren't able to be where you really wanted to be.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm happy to work. I love working. I love what I do. I just want to do it over there, and you're telling me no. And this predates remote working. Like this is like back in the day when everyone physically had to show up to an office. So that was becoming really challenging for me. Like the job was no longer, and my career was no longer serving the new life that I had. Now that there was another person involved. And so, he and I dated, got engaged, and got married in a hot minute, because that's what you do when you're over the age of 30, you're in a long distance relationship and you want to be together. And so, it wasn't until my husband kind of arrived in Canada to be with me that I kind of had my next nudge from the universe telling me that me and my advertising career needed to break up, was because I married a pilot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his career and my career were never going to be in alignment. He
Mm.
was always going to be picking up and taking off and going somewhere. And I
Mhm.
physically had to show up to this cubicle every day, AKA jail.
Right?
And
Yeah.
I
It's the
was like,
stark contrast.
yeah, I was like, no. So while the work was fun, well, I love what I did, how I was doing it was no longer serving the life that I was having now with this future partner.
Okay.
So a
Yeah.
life change happened for me, which is what
Mhm.
made me kind of fall out of love with my career,
Yeah.
because I needed a different lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because
Wow.
it was no longer okay for me to work till 8, 9 o'clock at night, go home, eat
Mhm.
some popcorn for
Yeah.
dinner, and sleep, turn around and go back to the office. I'm
Yeah.
like, there's another person. Like we need to do things
Right.
together.
This
We
is
need to
kind of
like eat.
depressing. This is
Yeah.
not what I want to do.
Single girl Jess was like, yeah, maybe had a banging career and on the outside looked great, but
Mhm.
it wasn't.
Yeah.
The life wasn't great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how was that for you when you finally made that decision? You're like, "Okay, it's time. Handing in the letter of resignation. I'm making this big decision." Were you scared? Were you
Um
concerned? Or were you excited?
no, because I put a transition plan together. I got
Mhm.
an exit strategy
Yeah.
because I was not in a position to just quit my job and start a business. My
Mhm.
husband was a brand new immigrant to the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was very challenged in getting his career off the ground because they wanted quote unquote Canadian experience. I'm
Right.
like, what does that mean? I'm like, it's a plane. There's a sky over Canada.
Right. It's the
What?
Canadian sky.
So he struggled to find his to get started, and so I
Right.
was the sole income earner. I was the primary income earner, and
Okay, so there's pressure.
as the sponsor of an immigrant, you were also
Mhm.
financially responsible for this person for 10 years, whether or not like you stay together, right? So I
Wow.
wasn't in the position to walk away from my six-figure advertising career just because
Right.
it no longer suited me. I had to put an
Right.
exit strategy together.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I
Mhm.
started a business part time as a side hustle. And that
Mm.
I did that for 2 years
Mhm.
alongside of my corporate career until I grew my business to the size where I could
Mm.
walk away.
Okay.
So I am that, I think they're called like squirrel monkeys or something, or
Mhm.
like flying monkeys, where you don't let go of one branch until you have a firm grip
Do
on
you
the
have the other one?
That was me. I'm
Yeah.
like, reach, go for it. Do the work, in the 9 to 5 and then the 5 to 9 time,
Yeah.
or, whatever those pockets are, build something for yourself in those other hours, get a grip. And then when you have a firm grip, then I let go.
Yeah. Exit strategy.
Exactly.
Y'all, I'm telling you, I told you this was going to be a master class.
Yeah.
Have
Get
that
yourself an
exit.
exit
That's
strategy.
brilliant. I mean, that's really smart. It is because I don't think a lot of people think in terms of what is my exit strategy. They get to the point where they're just fed up and it's like, I got to get out of here. Let me just find something else rather than just hit the pause button for a moment and really look at the strategy behind this.
Yeah.
How can I do this in a way that is going to benefit me? Show your support by becoming a Calm 24/7 Insider. Monthly subscriptions begin for as little as $3 a month. Join today and get a shout out on an upcoming episode and receive a special gift from me. To join my Insider Club, click on the link in the show notes.
I learned this through a personal situation though, right?
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
and I just applied it to my career because as a young woman, my parents always told me like when you're going out with anyone, you make sure you have enough money that if something goes sideways and you need to exit this dinner, this whatever, you can get yourself out of there and get yourself home safely.
Go
So
mom and dad.
as a raising daughters, they wanted to make sure that we had enough money in the bank
Mm,
that if something happened, you had X amount of time to survive on your own, right?
yeah,
You had to have a passport. You
Yeah.
had to have a driver's license, and you needed to have these tools to make sure that you were not dependent on somebody else 100%.
Mm.
They would call it like get vex money. Like if you were out on a date and he said something at dinner that did not go well, you needed to have enough money to make sure that you could get in a cab or find your way out of there without him.
Wow. Okay. So, y'all, if you have daughters, hit the pause button right now and rewind it. Go get your daughters and have them listen to, if they don't listen to anything else, they
Yeah.
need to listen to what we were just talking about right now. That
Right?
is
Like
some valuable advice. Good for your parents for, just kind of passing along. So many young women don't get advice like that.
they called it get vex money. You
Yeah.
needed to have money that if you got mad,
Hmm.
you could walk away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow.
So I applied that to my career. Like then you're like, okay, well, how much money do I need in the bank to be able to pay all my bills? That
Mhm.
if this company decided that they don't want me anymore, I'm
Mhm.
okay. Or if
Mhm.
I decide I don't want this company anymore, I'm okay. So
Yeah.
I'm also somebody who survived a very, very long in my career before getting laid off.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
didn't get laid off in my career for the first 13 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I got my first layoff, it came at a very inopportune time.
Mhm.
It was like a punch in the gut. We had just gotten married. We were 2 months in.
Mhm.
We were in the middle of my husband's residency application. So even though I had paid into EI for 13 years, I
Mhm.
couldn't collect unemployment insurance
Oh,
because had I done that, they would have rejected his residency. So
oh,
I had
no.
no security net. And I had just started a new job at a new company and last one out, last one in, first one out. So
Yeah.
there was no severance package. I was there for like 4 months.
Wow.
I had nothing.
Yeah.
So I've been laid off 4 times in 3 years after
Mhm.
that. And so that was the other catalyst for me too, was Jessica, like I want to make sure I am never in a position where somebody else has the deciding factor over how much I earn
Yeah.
or when I earn or anything like that. And the only way to do that was to start my own business and
Mhm.
be, responsible for myself. So I wanted to make sure that I could never be fired ever again or laid
Mhm.
off ever again because I was my own boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that all stemmed from that lesson of set yourself up that if ever anything goes sideways, prepare for impact.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
have the safety net? Do you have the money? Do you have the driver's license to jump in the car and drive away? Do you have a passport to exit this vacation that you guys are on and things aren't going well? You can get on a plane and leave.
Yeah. I mean, it really does give you that sense of control. I mean, and you have options, which it's not something that we really think about.
Mhm.
Um, so I really kudos to your parents for making that a part of the conversation. And I'm serious. Y'all get your
Yeah.
daughters in
And
here
you know
right
what?
now.
When you ask that original question, like what was it, what skills, whatever, is like that's how I was raised. And so when you show up knowing that there is a back door,
Yeah.
you're put in situations, in your career and whatever and whatnot, there's an exit that
Yeah.
you don't have to stay anywhere and put up with an abusive boss or toxic,
Yeah.
work environment or whatever, because you have to create a back door for yourself.
Yeah.
That
Whether it's a
company.
job, whether it's a relationship,
Mhm,
any of those things, you have that ability. You have that exit
exactly.
strategy. You have that
Exit
plan.
strategy. So
Mhm.
that I created an exit strategy for myself to get myself out
Mhm.
of my 9 to 9 grind,
Mhm.
and start, doing more things that I wanted to do
Yeah.
that, really kind of fueled my heart and served me in a
Mhm.
different way. And I could help people in a different way.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I became a social marketer.
Mhm.
And I use that business to help myself and
Mhm.
help other people. And I was able to, make different choices, support my husband's career. That was a big thing for us too.
Mhm.
And, now that I was no longer a stressed out workaholic, you actually have like the
Yeah.
space and capacity to do other passion projects that you want to do that you don't have time for when you're stressed out workaholic. And so
Mhm.
that's what I started to do. I started to volunteer. I started to work, for other organizations and,
Yeah.
bring some skills, work with different brands that I actually enjoyed and liked. And, the podcast was something that I always wanted to do too. And then I'm like, Jess, you keep seeing the people do the thing that you say you want to do. It's time to do it. And so I pulled that plan off the shelf. I dusted it off, and I started the show. And it was inspired by that first story that I mentioned of I just got laid off. Now what?
Yeah.
With me and my husband, and sharing the resilience that I had to pursue and the grit and determination to figure out what was next after getting laid off at that very inopportune time.
That's
And
right.
as a speaker and a coach, I've shared that story on many stages.
Mhm.
And the feedback was always the same of, oh my gosh, Jess, that story was packed full of so many lessons.
Yep.
And I'm
That's
like, I know. And I got a dozen more where that one came from.
right.
And so that's was like, you need to start this show. You need to be able to share these stories on a scale that will be able to reach more people.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I just blank. Now what was created? And it's a show that has my personal stories, but also guests who come on and share their stories of life when life came at them
Mhm.
and they had to figure out how to figure out what was next. And we do it to inspire other people to wake up every day knowing that no matter what life brings to their door, they can figure it out.
That's right. That's right. And I think that's why I feel such a strong kinship with you because I feel so much, in the same way with this podcast, talking about communication skills. Because look, at the end of the day, it's a big experiment, right?
Mhm.
And we all make mistakes and we got to learn from those mistakes. It's not the end of the world, but these are just sometimes we'll share a very specific tip that you might be able to try out at work, try with your boss or maybe with a significant other. Sometimes we're just sharing stories. It's like this. I mean, amazing lessons learned that you can just kind of shift your mindset just a little bit or just gain a slightly different perspective so you can try out something differently, look at something a little bit differently. And if you just have that little bitty tweak, it could have an incredibly huge impact
Mhm.
on, just a different result. And so I think, and I'm sure you feel the same way, even if it's just one person can pick up on whatever it is that you're trying to share with them. And
Totally.
it helps in any way, no matter how small, it's all worth it. It's so incredibly worth it when you hear someone get back with you and say, hey, that was a really great episode. That one thing, I took it and it
Mhm.
just helped so much. I mean, it's such a great feeling to know that you're able to, have that type of influence or just, have that type of impact on someone's life, no matter how small it is. I
It's
mean, it's big
actually
for
the
them.
it's actually the tiny things that
Yeah,
make the biggest impact, right? So,
that's right.
um, and it could just be a thought, like something someone
Yeah,
said. Like
yeah.
maybe now there's a whole bunch of people out there been like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm going to make sure that my
Mhm.
kid gets her driver's license."
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's gonna be a really big piece about having some independence, and my mom was the influence there
Mhm.
of watching her mom be dependent on somebody else to come and pick
Mm,
her up and drive her and take her places,
yes,
and so my mom was like, she was getting her license, she wasn't waiting on anybody to, like,
that's
pick her
right.
up and wasted so much time waiting for other people to
Yeah,
take them somewhere. And she's like,
yeah,
"No, no, no." And so she was very insistent when my sister and I turned 16 that we got our license because she
yeah.
didn't want us waiting on no one.
Mhm. That's right.
Or in a case of an emergency and there's a car in the driveway, she wanted to make sure that her daughters were able to get in that car and drive to whatever hospital or whatever the situation was. Like, there's a car in the driveway. You need to be able to learn to drive it.
That's
So,
right.
having the tools and knowing how to use the tools are really, really
Mhm.
important. And that goes for so many things in life,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And
So
just being open to learn, to being open to do new things, and to fail. There's a lot of failure in this journey that I haven't talked
that's how we
about.
learn.
That's what we learn. And people, like people are the lifeblood of any business, anything that you want to do requires other humans
Yeah.
to speak about it, to share about it, whatever. And so, having really good skills of communicating with other people and
Mhm.
helping them see your vision and enrolling them into your if that vision and plan, getting them on board with it, whether
Mhm.
you're a CEO of a massive company or you're an entrepreneur and a solopreneur and a team of one, whether you're asking people to come and join your show
Mhm.
or buy Girl Guide cookies from your daughter, like you need to like set vision for people and enroll them into this bigger idea and help people feel as though they are part of something bigger than themselves. That's
Mm.
the key thing.
Yeah.
When you help somebody see how important they are, not
Mm.
only to their own life, but to this society and this, planet and in the community, that's when you get a volunteer army. And
Yeah.
when you have a volunteer army all working towards the same thing, you're unstoppable.
Wow. I tell you what, helping others feel important. Who doesn't want to feel acknowledged,
Mhm.
right? Who doesn't want to feel like they're able to make a difference, no matter how small you think it might be? And to be in a position to be able to help someone else feel that, that's an awesome responsibility to have, and it's really cool to see it happen when you're able to help someone, gain that insight into themselves. So
Yeah.
could you just real quickly for the audience, could you explain what is a social marketer? So what is it that you do in your business on that side of the house? I want to get back to the podcast in just a second, but would you take a few minutes just to explain
Absolutely. So,
that?
a social marketer also has, a couple other way network marketer, and essentially what that is word of mouth,
Yeah.
right? Word of mouth is the original advertising.
Yes.
Before there were billboards, before there were magazine ads, before there were TV commercials, how
Mhm.
other people learned about things was somebody else told them about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Right? It was belly to belly, like
Mhm.
person to person communication. That is the original advertising. It's called
Mhm.
gossip, also, right? Um, so that's what I do. So instead of paying,
Mhm.
celebrities, big contracts to go and endorse a brand and or a product, the company that I am partnered with, I'm the brand ambassador. I am
Mm.
that
Okay.
celebrity. I'm the walking, talking billboard for their products. And so
Mhm.
I share about them. I talk about them. And when somebody purchases those products through my recommendation,
Mhm.
I get a cut.
Mm.
I get paid because I'm the reason they learned about that brand. I'm the reason they learned about this like amazing green gut glow drink that's helped this person's digestive
Yeah.
system and they're feeling so much better. I'm the person who brought this person to this company and said, "Hey, give this brand a try." So
Mm.
I, you know, we sh- I deserve it. I might
Yeah.
not be Halle Berry, but I deserve it because I'm the connector. So
Yeah.
I'm literally just a connector of people and a brand and helping them get together. And I share this brand story.
Mm.
Um, and why I personally love it, why I personally use it. And people generally, we're going back to that trust thing, purchase things from people they know, like, and trust. And so
Yeah.
if your best friend is saying, Jen, oh my God, you got to try this thing. I just did it. You're like, oh, get me some of that.
Yeah. Okay.
You're
Yeah.
probably more in tune to purchase that product because the recommendation came from somebody you know, because
Mm.
we're all now smart enough to know that Beyonce doesn't use L'Oreal hair color and Jennifer Aniston probably really doesn't use Aveeno. Like,
Right.
we're smart enough consumers to know that those celebrities have been paid to
Right.
represent these bands.
Yeah.
But if your bestie down the street is telling you, "Oh my God, I've been drinking this thing and I am feeling freaking fantastic," or my hair is growing, my nails are
Mhm.
glowing, whatever it is, you'll be like, "I need some of that."
Yeah. Yeah.
Why can't
That's so
that
true.
friend be compensated for that purchase?
Okay. I see.
Recommended. It's all
Yeah.
recommendations. It's a recommendation selling. It's
Mhm.
and you're using your network, your social network.
Yeah.
And now with social media, our networks are a lot bigger. It's no longer just the people we physically come in contact with in our dated activities. You're
Mhm.
connecting with people from Australia, New Zealand, the other side of the planet because of social media. So social media has allowed us to have bigger audiences and create friend groups whom we've
Mhm.
never physically met in person, but they are literally our online bestie, like you and I
Mhm.
are,
Yeah,
um,
that's right. Yeah.
that you have influence over. Everyone
That's
has influence. Whether you're
yeah.
talking to 5 people or you have a following of 1,000 or more, everyone has
Mhm.
influence, and people get to know you and like you and listen to my stories on Instagram every day and been like, "Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, like, Jess, you know, your hair looks gorgeous. What are you using?" Or, whatever it is. I'm recommending things that I love all the time.
Yeah.
Thankfully, some of them pay me to do that when it results in a sale, and others I recommend just because for the sheer love of recommending it.
Yeah.
But that's what a social marketer is somebody who shares information to their social network
Yeah.
about the things that they love and they do.
Mhm.
And those brands say, thank you for bringing me a customer.
Generate some passive income by launching your own online store today with Printful. Create and sell custom products online with easy print-on-demand dropshipping services. You can create an online store that sells a variety of high-quality products that range from coffee mugs to phone cases to jackets. Or you can even create your own unique apparel collection. So what are you waiting for? Get started today by clicking on the link in the show notes. Yeah. That's amazing. So, do you ever offer classes to others on how they too can become a social marketer?
Absolutely. I actually do quite a bit of coaching,
Because
and
you know that there are some people listening and their ears just perked up.
that's the best part too, is that, not only do I have am I able to be a brand ambassador, I have the ability to coach other brand ambassadors too.
Wow.
And be thanks for teaching. How many of you have gone to a job and trained a new person?
Mm,
Did you
mhm.
get paid for that?
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
get a percentage of that person's future earnings because literally you shared your knowledge with them and their success is kind of partly due to you? No, but that's the part of it too, is that, we get thanked for helping others. It's a business that is used to sharing is caring, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Passing on knowledge and designed in a way that you're incentivized to make sure that other people succeed.
Yeah, that is amazing. Okay, so we have just a little bit of time left, so we're going to start wrapping it up here. But I have so many more questions, and one of those questions, I'm going to ask you to share all your information because I know
Mhm.
the ears perked up, and I know that there are going to be some people out there going to be like, "Hey, man, I need to find out more about this.
Yeah.
How do I contact her?" So we're going to get to all of that. I want to kind of jump back into your podcast though, before we run out of time. I
Mhm.
have a couple of questions about the podcast. So you have had the opportunity to interview so many people and have them talk about these really
All
difficult
the
times in
things.
their lives. Yeah. I mean, just some really difficult situations that they have found themselves in that they just kind of had to figure out
Mhm.
literally like, now what? What am I going to do?
Mhm.
What are some of the takeaways that you have learned, over the time of being able to have these amazing conversations, people opening up to you? What are some things that come to mind, when you hear the question? So what are some of those lessons learned for you at this point? Because
Yeah.
you already come to the table with so much knowledge, and that you bring a lot of information just from your own experiences. What are some new things that you've learned being able to be a host of this podcast?
It is a true honor, and I'm not going to lie. Part of me set this up so I could tap into and learn, right? Like I
Mhm.
had
Yeah,
front row
yeah.
access to some amazing people and amazing
Oh,
lessons.
yeah.
So at the time of this recording, we are wrapping up the 4th season of my show, and we're
Mhm.
approaching our 100th episode.
Mhm.
And most of that have been through wonderful guests coming on
Mhm.
my show. And the common theme and thread that I find through all of the episodes is resilience
Mm. Mhm.
is in all of us. We all have it. We just need to tap into it and turn it on,
Mhm.
right? And something in life is the switch.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
right? So we have inner strength, like in spades, but
Mm-hmm.
some of us just literally just need that thing to hit the switch to turn it on. But it's there in all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's some
Anything.
We need to hear that so much though. It's so easy to feel when you go through whatever it is
Mhm.
that has just kind of completely knocked you down and you feel like you're alone, you're in this abyss. We really need to hear that
Yeah,
look, it is in us.
it is in
It
us.
is.
You have everything within you to
Mhm.
figure this out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
You just need to start like flipping on some switches at the
Yeah.
switchboard, right? And maybe it was off for a little while. Second is we all go through something. We
Mhm.
are all going through something
We sure are.
constantly.
Mhm.
That is life. We are living life. If you are alive, you are going through shit.
Mhm. That's right.
And you should be grateful for it because
Mhm.
it is the lessons. It is the things that are preparing you for a future that you don't even know for.
Mhm.
Um, and in hind and 100% every time, every guest, when they look back in hindsight and look at what happened, and then they share the story and
Mhm.
what they did to figure out, they at the time they all didn't know what was going to even be possible, but in the future when they look back they're always grateful for it. No
Yeah.
matter what it was that happened, all of my guests, myself included, are always grateful for those
Mhm.
hard times
Mhm.
because it helps them in ways they didn't even realize they needed. It
Mm,
opened
mhm,
them up, it put them on a new path, it protected them.
mm.
Sometimes it was that bad situation, you got fired, you got laid off, it removed them from a situation
Yeah,
that saved their life.
yep. That's right. That's right. It was
So,
the catalyst they didn't know they needed.
yeah, it
Mhm,
was the nudge. It was the
mhm.
thing to get them to safety,
Yeah.
to learn a new thing. So everyone is always grateful for all the things,
Mhm,
right? Even as bad as they were, they're always still grateful for them. It helped flip a switch. They
mhm,
have more compassion for others
mhm,
because they've gone through something, and so
mhm,
now they have empathy for others who are either going through something similar or it could be something completely different, but they know what that feels like, and so
mhm,
there's more empathy from them to the rest of the world. And
mhm,
the other thing is the theme that keeps coming up always is that um, no matter what, they are ready to face the next thing too
mm.
in a better way. And they
That's
know that something else is coming.
Yeah.
Everyone who has gone through something knows that there's something else in the future
It's just
that is
matter of time.
better.
That's life.
So they are now better prepared for impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't look at that future thing as, oh my God, here we go again. Oh, like, why me? Whoa, like there's no more victim.
Right.
So
Yes.
it helps them for those future situations because
Mhm,
they've moved out of victim mode into, their powerful superhero
yeah.
mode. And they
Yeah.
know that whatever life brings to the door, they're going to tackle it and they're going to be grateful for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I know I'm gonna be okay. I mean, it sucks right now.
Yeah,
It sucks. Yeah. I
totally
mean,
bad. Yuck. Ugh.
absolutely.
And
It
they have
sucks,
their
but,
moments,
I'm gonna get through it.
but they
Mhm.
bounce back from
Yeah.
those so much faster.
Yeah.
Everyone is a lot more bouncy when you
Mhm.
go through stuff for the next thing. And that's a common thing that I see on the show all the time is
Yeah.
the stuff doesn't stop coming.
Mhm. Oh,
Life
yeah.
is going to continue to come, but they're more prepared for it when they
Mhm.
go through really hard times.
Yeah, and how inspirational for you, right? To be able to
Mm,
just listen to all of these stories of overcoming obstacles and the things that they've gone through, and to be able to see that transformation and listen to that story. I imagine that sometimes you just walk away so feeling so fulfilled and just so connected with that person because they felt comfortable enough to share that story with you. It
absolutely.
is an incredible privilege to be able to do something like this, to have
When
people come on your
when
show and share their story.
people are vulnerable with you,
Hmm.
they have given you access to them.
Yeah,
You that is a huge gift,
yeah,
and you have to use it wisely.
yeah.
And you can't take advantage of that. And if you cultivate that relationship and that friendship when someone has been vulnerable with you, it can serve in a beautiful, beautiful way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Well, Jessica, how do we get in touch with you? Give us all of the things, your socials, how to listen to your podcast.
Yeah. So if you follow me on social, jess.loves.life, it's where I like to hang out on Instagram. And I'm pretty active there. jessicastevens.ca is the website, and that's where you can reach out to me, send me emails, ask me questions, all the things. And there's where you can also find the podcast, but you can find it also on any podcast platform your heart loves. And it's I Just Blank. Now what?
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. I mean, you truly are just an inspiration for others. I know it's really cool to have your own show and that you're inspired by people, but I just hope that you truly do know what kind of an inspiration you are to others. You really do make an impact. And I, for one, I am just so incredibly thankful that our paths crossed. It just, through happenstance, being on the same, I think we were both on Podmatch or something.
Yeah, we were on the same platform.
Yeah. And
we had to cancel our chat like a whole bunch of times, but we followed up with each other. We're like, no, Jen is someone I got to talk to. Let's reschedule this. Yeah. And that's the other thing. Is my last note.
Yes.
Be persistent. Do not let silence end communication. Reach back out. You have no idea what was going on in that person's life as to why they might have fallen off, that email chain or the text message reply. Reach out and always give people the benefit of the doubt. I've been stood up a lot of times at a lot of meetings, whether that be Zoom or in person. And I always reach out and say, I'm checking in. I want to see, did something happen?
Yes.
And most of the times, something happened.
Something happened.
No one's trying to be mean to you on purpose. No one, is ignoring that email or that phone call, to be out of malice. Sometimes it's whatever. So just reach out and give people the benefit of the doubt and help pick up that conversation again and keep those lines of communication open.
Amen. That is 100% correct. Absolutely. Check your assumptions. No, like you said, that reaching out, that one message that you send could be the one thing that person needed because they could be going through something. And that's why they fell off the face of the earth, is because of whatever it is that they're going through.
Absolutely.
Thank you again, Jessica. I really enjoyed this. I know the listeners got so much out of this.
I loved it.
And you and I will talk again. Yeah, we will definitely
do for sure. You're not getting rid of me, Jen. You're not getting rid of me.
All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I want all of you to have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review.